The oldest of native Hawaiian chants describe the Hawaiian Islands, the spirits that inhabit them, the forces of nature that shaped them, and all the living things upon them as inextricably connected, and perhaps the wisdom of the native peoples is true and not just folklore. When authorities are called to a residence for an incident, what they will see will shake them all to their core. A supposed entity with an insatiable hunger for blood and corpses makes its presence known. Are the infamous tales true? This is what we will discover as we dive into the untold story of the haunted Kasha house of Kaimuki, located in Hawaii. Beyond the waters of its beaches and the lush green canopies of its forests, the tropical paradise of the islands of Hawaii are an idyllic home or getaway for many. However, within the mists, shadows permeate, and where the veil is thin between our world and the next, those shadows sometimes whisper. In Japanese folklore, the creature known as the Kasha paints a terrifying picture. Its name translates to fire cart. It is a creature that is known to frequent populated areas, and where its diet consists of consuming the flesh of fresh human corpses. According to the lore, these creatures are a type of bakineko, or a type of hellcat that lives among human beings under the guise of a common house cat or a stray. They are bipedal and larger than most people. When they make themselves known, they are accompanied by the flames of hell, and strong thunderstorms are left in their wake. It is only during funerals that their true forms are revealed, and as a result, they are known to snatch the corpses of the freshly deceased and spirit them away to hell for punishment, a type of grim reaper, if you will. Akasha will animate a corpse as a puppet to do its bidding, and then will consume it as the ultimate punishment for one's misdeeds in life. Our story begins around 1940 on Oahu, in Hawaii, in a large house that stands at 8th and Harding in Kaimuki, its foundation resting atop 2 beds of lava rock. The original story that began the infamy of the Kaimuki house tells of a young couple who moved into the home, hoping for a good and beautiful life together. But almost as soon as they moved in, this shared dream would deteriorate. The neighbors began hearing loud bangs and crashes almost every night. And as the episodes grew in intensity, and suspecting that perhaps domestic violence could be taking place, one of the neighbors called the police. When the police arrived and questioned the couple, instead of seeing one or the other upset or abused, they told them something else instead. They began to divulge to the officers that they were being attacked by something that they couldn't see. What happened to the young couple following this particular night is unclear, but what is known is that they moved out a short while after the incident. Sometime later, on August 13th, 1942, on this day, an article would appear in the Honolulu Star Bulletin newspaper, one that described a bizarre happening that had just taken place. And this incident was supposedly caused by the evil doings of Kahuna. For further context, in ancient Hawaii, treatment of the sick was based on the belief that poor health was caused by malevolent spirits or disease-producing demons. Illness was considered the result of sorcery, or in some cases, the ramifications of one's actions. Among the Hawaiians, there existed a group, the kahunas, or those who were keepers of the secret, whose wisdom had been gained by divine guidance. Kahunas were grouped into various categories, some good and others bad, and sorcery was practiced by the group. It was known as the kahuna ananai. So essentially, kahuna is a form of witchcraft with both white and black magic. On the night the article referred to, police officers were called to a house by a woman during a strong thunderstorm. During the call, the lady kept repeating, "She's trying to kill my children," over and over again. Her words kept being interrupted by loud crashes of thunder and what sounded like items being destroyed in the background. Upon arriving and entering the house, the officers couldn't believe what they were seeing. Those present began to witness something that was truly horrific. The woman who had initially called was screaming in the corner of the main room as her 3 children were levitating before her and everyone. Upon approaching them, the officers, as well as the children, would be slapped, pushed, and hurled across the room by a sinister, invisible force. The children were a brother and 2 sisters, ages 10, 18, and 20. The main officer in charge was a police sergeant. Prior to the call, the family began to smell a very strange odor, like that of sulfur permeating their home, and then the physical attacks began. As the force attacked those involved, the mother of the family ran into her room and returned with several items. She frantically began fanning tea leaves and began throwing salt towards the entity. After several minutes, her efforts seemed to work, as the children and the officer were released from the clutches of whatever this thing was. The family and the officer would vacate the premise following this night of horror. The woman who had called the authorities believed that the happenings were a result of black magic that had been placed on her by her ex-husband, whom she had recently left. This is no doubt probably the most famous stories surrounding the Kaimuki house, given the press it received in the various media outlets, but it certainly would not be the last. 30 years later, another incident would too garner the attention of the people. Another frantic late-night call had dispatched a patrol car in Kaimuki. The girls who lived there had supposedly heard strange noises of someone moving around and talking inside of their house. At first, thinking someone had broken into their home, they phoned the authorities. But following the call, the noises began to escalate in intensity. Then, one of the women felt the ice-cold grasp of a hand on her arm. The girls, all 3, ran out of the home and sat in their car until the officer arrived. Upon hearing their story, he would go inside and check the home for an intruder, but would find no one. Deciding to spend the rest of the night with one of the girls' mothers, they asked the policeman to follow them to the mother's home to ensure their safety. As the girls drove in front of the officer, they began to erratically swerve from side to side, ultimately pulling into a vacant parking lot. Upon approaching the vehicle with concern, the policeman later wrote this in his report. As I approached the vehicle, I could see 2 of the girls screaming. The girl sat in the middle, in the back, was fighting a person that could not be seen. She was very clearly being strangled. I opened one of the back doors and reached into the vehicle, and to my shock, a big, strong, calloused hand that could not have possibly been that of a teenage girl grabbed my arm and twisted it. Upon freeing myself, I called for backup. The answering officer was certainly prepared for a parking lot fight, but not one with a ghost. Within minutes, the other officer would arrive, and with all the color drained out of his face, the original responding officer told him that there was a ghost in that car. By this point, all women involved had exited the car and were hysterical, crying and screaming. Continuing to quote the officer's report, I told the girl who had been choked to get in my patrol car and the other two women to ride with my fellow officer. But as soon as the young lady sat in my vehicle, which had stayed running during the incident, the motor died. It died and wouldn't start up again. Placing the girls back into their original car, the officer tried to start the vehicle again, and it started as if nothing had ever been wrong. Wanting to get these frightened girls home safe, the original officer and the responding officer agreed to continue to follow them, but upon pulling out of the parking lot, and almost as soon as they had driven about 5 yards, suddenly, one of the girls' vehicle's doors flew open, and the same girl who had previously been attacked was thrown out of the vehicle. Upon rushing to her position to check on her, she was again tearing at her throat and making noises as if she was being strangled. She had also incurred some road rash. Together, the two policemen were not strong enough to pull her hands away. Terrified and believing the matter to be a spiritual one of the officers ran into the nearby Oasis Cafe and came back with a handful of salt and a glass of water, which was spritzed upon everyone there. And as the drops touched the young woman, she finally was able to catch her breath again. In later interviews, the officer would tell the press that his grandmother had told him that this was a method to make ghosts go away, and perhaps his grandmother was right. Given the time frame in which these stories occurred, most involved may no longer be with us, so corroborating details is nearly impossible. But these tales have certainly made the Kaimuki house infamous. Now, there are several possible explanations as to why and how the home became haunted by whatever paranormal entity or entities. Again, details are scarce, but I've done my best to research and put together the most cohesive theories possible. The first theory refers to a father who, after his wife told him that she was going to leave him, decided to do the unthinkable and end the lives of his 2 children and his wife that still resided in the home. The wife and son's bodies were buried in the backyard, but the corpse of the daughter was never found. The second theory is that of a strange love triangle. A man was dating a woman who was dating another woman in secret without the man knowing. And upon his discovery of his girlfriend's secret affair, he decided to take the lives of her girlfriend, and ultimately himself within the walls of the Kaimuki house. The original house, from what I could gather, has since been demolished and another home built atop where it once stood. And one of the many questions I have is this home haunted just as the original home was? Was the haunting, if it existed at all, the result of vengeful spirits of those who had met their demise there? The result of a bloodthirsty entity known as the Kasha, who would do anything to feed upon the flesh of the freshly deceased? Or was it something else? Was it perhaps the result of native Hawaiian black magic being practiced on the premises or nearby? Or someone cursing another using this magic? We may never truly have the answers to these probing questions. But one thing is for certain. There was once a place that harbored darkness, a black void that existed in the heart of paradise, the supposed home of the angry souls of the dead, and possibly a creature from a world that is not our own. So if you see something that's beautiful on the surface, just know that one must be cautious, because something evil could be lurking just beyond the shadows. Thank you guys so much for watching this new video. Hawaii is such a beautiful and cool place, full of culture and history and folklore, and I thought it was time to pay some respect and cover a story that originates from one of the islands. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a like, leave me a comment, and share this video around as much as you can. All that stuff truly, and I can't say this enough, helps me out tremendously. Not to sound like a broken record. There are many episodes to come, including one I've been working on for a few months now that I'm really excited to share with you guys. And as a message to my newer subscribers, I do have over 100 past videos that you can check out if you enjoyed this one and want to dive into another paranormal mystery. And other than that, guys, I appreciate each and every one of you. This has been Cody here at Mystery Archives. Remember to please stay safe out there and take care.